Welcome to this week's Real Estate Weekly Lesson, and I'm continuing with my mini-series. This is topic number 4, video number 4 in the mini-series. And in this series, if you haven't watched it so far, I'm basically breaking down a bunch of bullshit myths that you hear in this business, and I'm going to explain why they don't make any sense. So today's topic is going to be the myth of building a buyer's list. I've done videos on this before, but I feel like it's such a stupid idea. I'm going to make another video, and it's one of the keys. If you don't want to waste your time, you should avoid building a buyer's list. If you do enough wholesaling, you'll eventually get one kind of organically. I'll explain that. But if you're not familiar with who I am, my name's Greg Helbeck. I've been a full-time house flipper, wholesaler, landlord for 10 years. I've done, at this point, probably 450 properties, like closed transactions. So if you get value from this, if you're watching, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like the video. If you are listening, if you can share this audio with somebody else, it would mean a lot to me. We're getting a lot more downloads and views recently. So let's get into today's topic, which is myth number 4 in my mini series, and it's building a buyer's list. And boy, oh boy, am I passionate about sandbagging that idea. So if you're new and you've never done a deal before, and you see some ad online about somebody talking about no money real estate. By the way, that is old news. That has been going around forever. Everyone's been talking about no money down real estate since the birth of real estate, right? No money real estate gurus. And most likely they talk about wholesaling. If you're not familiar with wholesaling, it's when you get a property under contract that is a good deal, and it's such a good deal you can sell it to another investor for a profit, aka flip your contract for a fee. And you're ultimately selling to buyers, right? And the people think that you need some crazy buyer's list in order to be a good wholesaler, and it's completely BS. Obviously, if you have a good buyer's list, of course, it is easier to sell your deals, but building a buyer's list and spending a lot of time building the buyer's list is actually myth number 4. So it's basically spending a lot of your time thinking that's productive when you really should be spending your time looking for deals, because if you have a good deal, you won't have a problem selling it, assuming you're in a market where there's a decent sized population. So people teach newbies, gurus teach newbies that you need to go out and you need to spend your time building a buyer's list. You got to reach out to all these buyers. You got to figure out what they want. And you got to go give it to them. And that's totally horrible advice, because if you spend your days building a buyer's list, I make this funny joke. I call it mental masturbation. It feels good, but you probably shouldn't be doing it, right? It feels really good when you reach out to buyers. Hey, I'm a wholesaler. I want to sell you deals. What's your buy box? Oh, great, man. I'd love to have you add me to my list. Yeah. And then you're adding these people to your spreadsheet, most likely, and you think you're making progress, but you're really just building a buyer's list and wasting your time, because you should be spending that time going out and making offers on off-market sellers, because when you get a deal, it's really easy to sell it, right? Assuming it's a deal, right? That's the big problem with wholesaling now. It's gotten so saturated and popular. Wholesalers or wannabe wholesalers lock up properties at prices that don't make sense, and then they try to sell them and nobody wants them, and they don't think the business works, but they just don't have a good deal, right? So the takeaway here is avoid at all costs, just like the plague. Avoid building a buyer's list. Avoid spending a lot of time doing that, right? If you organically get people who reach out to you, yeah, you can add them to your buyer's list. If you happen to see a rehab project going on in your neighborhood and you want to figure out who the investor is, that might be a good use of time. But spend the majority of your time getting leads off market and making offers on those leads. Don't spend the majority of your time building a buyer's list. And here's why newbies really like to build a buyer's list versus get rejected by sellers, and it's human nature. It's very positive. Like, there's a lot of positive feedback, and there's not a lot of rejection when you're asking somebody if you can give them a deal that makes them money, right? If you hit up me and you said, hey, Greg, let me add you to my buyer's list. I can sell you good deals. I'm going to say, hey, great, man. I'd love to be on your buyer's list. Here's my information. And then you're going to have it. And you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I just got a buyer. It's like, well, if you have nothing to sell that buyer, how valuable is that buyer? Not valuable at all. So there's not a lot of rejection when it comes to building a buyer's list, because anybody who knows what they're doing is going to, of course, want to buy a good deal from you. But the problem is you're not spending your time actually doing the thing that will make you money, which is getting leads and making offers, and most likely getting rejected the majority of the time, which is actually going to lead to the money. It's counterintuitive. The thing you don't want to do, which is most likely get rejected by sellers and deal with crazy off-market people, is the actual thing that will get you paid in this business. Because here's the myth that people think. They think, well, if I spend all my time getting leads and getting deals, How am I going to know who to sell them to? Well, here's the thing. If you have a good deal, and like I said, you're in a market that's not the middle of nowhere, if you put your deal out to a Facebook group or to other investors, or heck, you freaking reverse cold call buyers, they're going to buy your deal because it's a good deal. If you have a property that's worth 400 that you can sell to somebody for 225,000 and it needs 50 grand, I'm telling you right now, somebody will buy it. Somebody will buy it. They pay 225 for a house, they put in 50, they're in for 275, they got some soft costs, they sell it for 400, they make a profit. It's easy to do that deal. Those numbers make sense. But the problem, like I said earlier, is that most wholesalers would try to lock that house up for 300 and then they try to sell it for 350, but then the ARV is 400 and there's no profit. There's actually a loss in that situation. So don't spend the majority of your time building a buyer's list. Spend the majority of your time talking to off-market sellers. The key there is off-market, not on-market. Don't deal with listed properties if you're a wholesaler. It's a waste of time. And spend the majority of that time talking to those sellers, making them offers on their off-market properties. And when you do enough of that, you will get deals. And when you get a good deal, and by the way, here's the little trick for a good deal. If most of your offers are getting accepted, you are not offering low enough. You need to offer lower because most of your offers should get rejected. That's the thing. This is a friction business. There's a lot of friction here. There's a lot of resistance. There's a lot of rejection. If your offer gets accepted on the first go around, not always, but most likely you're paying too much for the house and it's going to be hard to sell it. If you're getting rejected the majority of the time, that means you're most likely making correct offers because most people don't sell their house at a discount. We are in the needle in a haystack business. And the good thing is that the margins are high and you can make 30, 40 grand on a wholesale deal. So it's obviously worth it, but it's not normal to get every offer accepted. So you need to understand when you go towards the thing you don't want to do, which is get rejected by sellers, that's going to get you the thing you actually want, which is getting paid in this business, selling it to a buyer. And if you actually have a deal under contract, I'm telling you right now, you will find a way to make money selling it to a buyer. Whether you find the buyer directly or you find another investor who has a good buyer's list, spend the majority of your time talking to sellers and making offers. And this goes for people too who are not brand new. These are just regular people making money in this business. Don't get your eye off the basics. The basics, whether it's you or your team, getting leads, making offers, knowing your numbers, right? That is real estate 101, no matter where you are, no matter how big or small you are. Spend your time talking to sellers, making offers, sourcing deals, and then don't worry about the buyers because they will come if the numbers make sense. That is myth number 4, which is the myth of building a buyer's list and how it's basically a waste of time. Can you spend a little bit of time doing that? Yes. Can you probably do that off business hours as well? Yes. Can you get a pretty big buyer's list in a month and a half if you actually spend a little bit of time every day doing it and not the whole day when you could be talking to sellers? Yes. Is there most likely a big Facebook group in your market if you're not in the middle of nowhere where you can get most of your buyers? Yes. Therefore, don't spend too much time on it. Focus on sellers. Don't worry about this myth of building a big buyer's list. It's silly. And I'll tell you what, I'll give you an example, right? I am in the Washington area, and I've been in the Washington area for a year and a half, and I think my buyer's list is maybe 375 people. Every single deal that I have that's actually a deal, key there, gets sold. No issues. If the numbers make sense, somebody takes it. And my buyer's list is not even 400 people. Look at that. So that is my myth of the day that I wanted to debunk. If you are in the Hudson Valley or you're in Delaware or you're in the Seattle area and you have a house you want to wholesale to me, guess what? You got a buyer right here. I want to buy your deal if the numbers make sense. Of course, if you have something you want to send to me to look at, send me an email, greg@velocityhousebuyers.com, or you can send me a DM on Instagram @grego37, and I'll see you on the next REI weekly lesson. Take care.